Good morning, good morning. I always love the awkward start of a live. All right, I am going to add in Dr. Vaish. Let's see. Hello, everyone. I see everyone logging in. Happy Friday morning. Give the waves to everyone. I feel like that's the most fun part. It's like a poke on old school Facebook. Hello, good
Hi,
morning.
good morning.
How are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just letting everyone kind of log on.
Okay,
And just so everyone knows, I have questions set up on my screen over here. I'm all high tech with my ring light and all
awesome.
the
You're
fun
you're
stuff.
organized, unlike me.
That's okay. It's Friday. We made it another week.
Yes.
Oh, man. All right. I'm going to give everyone about one more minute. Hello, hello. Okay. Cool. So, we are calling this Mugs and Mornings. I am, yes, you brought your favorite mug. I love it. Is there a significance to your mug or is it just the
No.
caffeine inside?
Yes, I just yeah, it does that.
Awesome.
Just
I'm
my
here
chai.
with you.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I've got mine. Mine I just love. Found it at Home
What does
Goods.
it
So,
say? I'm seeing it upside down, so I can't tell.
oh, celebrate differences.
Ah.
So, cheers to that this morning. Um, all right, let's get rolling.
Hmm.
Um, so our first question is, who is your favorite Harry Potter character? We've heard you're a huge fan.
I am a huge fan. I have read a few times, and then when Sid was born, well, actually, when Sid was younger, we started hearing it on audiobook, which is now my favorite way of listening to anything. I
Yeah.
really thought hard about this because I was thinking about Harry Potter, and I've been asked this before. I think it's hard to pick because I'm more a fan of the entire series, but it has to be Fred and George, right? So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
Short
yeah.
story. I had never I saw the first one as a kid and then just
Uh-huh.
recently I got super into it and just last night I finished all the movies. And
Oh.
now I'm throwing around the idea of should I read the books? Do I take this leap?
Absolutely. Yeah, the movies are nothing. Yeah, you have to read them.
Oh man. All right. We'll have to
Yeah.
see. Right now my favorite character is Luna Lovegrove. I just
Uh-huh.
love her quirkiness and she's just fully
She's
herself.
very sweet.
Yes. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Fun icebreaker question. All right, so I know a little bit about your son's journey just from being involved in the community, but I would love to hear more about kind of how you ended up in what you're doing and what brought you to today, essentially.
Um, yeah, so it's always a hard place hard to know where to start because I mean, like we've really, traversed several mountains. Quick detail is that my son is now 14. His name is Sid, and he was born with Down syndrome. He accumulated several diagnoses over the years. He's also autistic and may have cerebral palsy, except that usually when you have multiple diagnoses, people I mean, it's very hard to get another one, but he presents like he may have CP. My my son is non-speaking and he has severe apraxia, so I mean, a huge body-brain gap. And I think we just learned by chance one day when we were applying for an online public school when he was going to second grade, and they had asked us to do this multiple choice question, just offer him a regular multiple choice question that was offered to other kids in second grade it's kind of a pre-screening questionnaire. And I was, kind of appalled. I was like, you have no idea how delayed my son is.
Mm,
Even if you gave him a 6-month old questionnaire, if there was such a thing, he's not going to be able to do it. He's 7. There is no such
wow.
thing. Just please don't do it. And they said, just give it. And I think I always like thank them. Every time I tell the story, I thank them because what I did was I tore pieces of, like, I wrote the choices and just tore paper and I just put it in pieces of paper and put them in front of him. It was like a
Okay.
pattern recognition thing. If there are
Yeah.
4 dots and 5 dots in a different pattern, what's the next thing? And he's not even a
Yeah.
visual kid. I don't know how he actually did it, but he couldn't point at this time. He couldn't isolate his index finger.
Yeah.
his eye contact wasn't steady, his or isn't still. So, and he wasn't looking, but he just went bam, he just patted at the
Yeah.
right choice. I think that was like, everybody has like one moment that changes. Maybe everybody has a moment that changes their life. That was the
Yeah.
one moment
Yeah.
that changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we discovered RPM at the time, and we started doing academics using RPM, and we started communicating using
Right.
the letter boards. Once you know that there is no cognitive delay, I think there is no turning back. So that's it. So after
Mm-hmm.
that, everything is just a progressive learning of skills. So once you've made that understanding, is that there is no delay. The delay is in the
Mm-hmm.
motor part. The delay is
Yeah.
in the brain body gap. It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge delay. Well, you continue to work on that. You go to OT, you go to PT, you go to, maybe speech if that's a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
but everything else is just a journey from there. So it's like pre that and post that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. And you saying, he's not a visual kid now or teen. I think like that slap, I always think about so many of the individuals I work with, the energy it takes to like ramp up their system essentially to get that motor out.
Mm.
Sometimes it's like, for me, it's like that slap was him like, here I am, this is it, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like it was,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot for him too. Like it was a shifting moment for him to really prove himself and the
Hmm.
motivation to make that change in his life. So that's awesome. That's such a
Yeah,
great
and it
story.
doesn't often happen again. So when parents see that, and especially when
Yeah.
educators see that, there's this huge um, tendency to say, "Can you show that to me 3 times so I can record
Mm-hmm.
that in my note-taking book?" Who's
Yeah.
going to show that to you 3 times? I mean, like if you made me, like I have the worst endurance of anybody you've ever seen. So like if I run for a minute, I've like achieved a lot. I mean, like I post that in every social media I have. So, but if you made me run I won't even say a marathon. If you made me run a half marathon and you asked me to repeat that 3 times, there's no way
Exactly.
you're not going, I'm not going to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I achieved it. I put a lot of energy towards it, like
Yeah.
recognize me
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That's good insight. Awesome. So I know you mentioned RPM, and I know I've just through watching some of your videos and following you in the community that I'm involved in, also spelling to communicate. So,
Hmm.
not to get like down that whole rabbit hole, because I do want to talk more about gut microbiome and all the stuff you're
Yeah.
doing. But if you had any recommendations for parents that were kind of in your shoes of maybe knowing about it or hearing about it a little bit, but just feeling uncertain of it, still having that little voice of doubt in the back of their mind. Is there any recommendations or readings or anything that you would share?
And you're talking from a spelling context.
Yeah, spelling
Yeah. Yeah.
or yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that at this point, I know of only two modalities that presume competence in your child in AAC in general. And this may be a little bit of a controversial thing to say, but I never recommend anything other than RPM and S2C to start with because they're the lowest tech AAC. So we're not getting into complications of glitzy, shiny, all of those things, which can work. But when a
Mm-hmm.
child needs tactile feedback, right? When a child needs different kinds of you know, hitting an iPad screen. I say that because with if you have a child that is very sensorially dysregulated or tactile delayed, it's very easy to get into a loop with the other techniques.
Yes.
So, and I mean speech as well. So, say the same thing over again. I have
Mm-hmm.
never, at least for myself and many of the kids that I work with, because I'm also a teacher, I
Mm-hmm.
have never seen anything work as well as the spelling techniques, both S2C and RPM. Having said that, it is not magic. So if you're doing it, if your child is really what Soma calls generalized vision, generalized auditory, generalized
Mm-hmm.
tactile, which means you have a really good control over how your vision is. You may see like one day shift, like Jamie Handley is that like
Yeah.
one day you're not spelling, the next day you are like everything is going.
Mm-hmm.
But for a majority of people, it may take months. For Sid, it took years. It took 5 years before he could spell fluently, and so the deal is that you presume competence and you do the hard work and it's not magic, but it's really the only thing that works, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
RPM or S2C.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so insightful. And I love that you kind of gave the disclaimer of this may be controversial, but I love controversial. I think if,
Yeah.
that's what brings up hard conversations or what it's about is having the conversations about it. I'm cool to see all the sides. It's
Yeah.
just learning from each other. And the other thing I want to hit on is that what you said, that stuck motor loop, which I think some people may not be familiar with. I didn't really learn that until about 2.5, almost 3 years into my OT career, of that what the body is doing, that mind body disconnect, what that body is
Mhm.
doing may just be neurons firing over and over and over, and it's not intentional. And it's all about the intention
Yeah.
behind it and finding ways to bring out that intention and be sure of that intention with the individual you're supporting. So
Yep.
really huge. And presuming competence, that's just, yeah, we are
It's the
in,
foundation, right? Yeah.
yeah, I feel like we are in like a, like pivotal revolution, like shift in the paradigm. I think it's been happening on the smaller scale, but with social media and even the pandemic and more people being like on computers and accessing each other in that way, I think so many people from so many different landscapes of the world have connected, and we all believed in it. We just weren't connected in the ways that we are now. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's huge and it makes me very excited. So thank you for bringing up that concept as well. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about the gut microbiome. Me as an
Uh-huh.
individual, I do this for myself. I do it for my
Uh-huh.
family. It's something I'm so passionate about. So when I saw you doing it, with the individuals that I serve and that is my life passion, I was just like, yes, I want to know more about
Mhm.
it. So, what are the first steps you feel that a parent can take to improve the microbiome or the mind gut axis?
Food diversity is the
Mm-hmm.
single most important step. However, that is not a single step. Okay, so especially with children with sensory issues, picky eating
Mm-hmm.
is also, it may be a motor loop, it may be more than a motor loop, it may be sensory aversion, it may just be a motor loop, it may be sensory aversion, it may be inflammation, it may be so many things, right? I don't think we still fully understand what all picky eating can be, but or self-restricted eating, as some people like to put it. But food diversity is the single most effective factor that can change, that can diversify your gut. So, and in order to make the brain gut connection stronger and improve vagal tone, you really need microbial diversity in your gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to eat different kinds of foods. And just to clarify, that pizza and a cheese sandwich do not count as different kinds of food. So we're talking about the foundational foods that make up the pizza. So different grains, different vegetables, especially different vegetables, different root vegetables, different fruits, um, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, you know, cruciferous veggies, also included in veggies, anything.
Yeah.
Then, if you want to take it one step further, and if you have a child that's struggling with a lot of dysregulation, emotional or sensory, you might want to consider their inflammatory status. So, to support the gut, uh, I have seen many people benefit from going off gluten and dairy.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people I know that have seen results have gone off it for a very long time. And it's scary in the beginning, but at least for me and Sid, what we found was that when we removed it, we actually got more expansion in our diet, because the addictive nature of gluten and dairy means that when you eat them, you just tend to just find different versions of a donut and a croissant and a pizza. And you just that's basically, most kids eat different versions of gluten and dairy throughout their day. But when you've taken it out, it's hard in the beginning, but it kind of automatically expands your diet. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, Sid does lentil crepes for breakfast, and he does like something like a quinoa bowl for lunch. And this may sound very much out of reach, but it quickly comes. It's not as bad as it sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I even noticed that in myself. If I start off my day with pancakes, that's kind of what I'm craving throughout the day. My energy levels are all over the place.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that once you remove that, you almost are like retraining your palate essentially, that and your
Mhm.
brain, those neurotransmitters that are craving that type of
And you
like
bring in a
rush.
very good point, actually, because what's before that, remember I said that bringing in food diversity, it's almost a final step. It's not the first step. It's very hard. So
Very
actually,
true.
what you said is blood sugar balance, is because
Hmm.
when you eat something sweet and something that can spike up your blood sugar, the
Hmm.
next result is your blood sugar falls. And it doesn't matter how low it falls. So if you do a pinprick, you may not measure anything crazy. You're not going into super low dangerous blood sugar levels. But when your body senses this sharp fall, it's this, the next craving sets in. So you really can't, it's like when you eat a donut, you have to eat another donut, right? How hard is it to stop after, like, you can't stop with one mini donut. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So, and it's addictive, and it's the blood sugar levels. I
Yeah.
myself have like major fatigue issues, and I'm very
Mm,
sensitive to sugar. So if I start my morning with anything sweet, I'm basically done. I need like 5 naps to get through the day. So it has
yeah.
to be protein. So in order to get, let me back this up. So in order to get to where we want to go, which is anti-inflammatory diet with a lot of different foods, the first step is blood sugar regulation. And the first step to blood sugar regulation is a breakfast, ideally a savory breakfast without sugar, and getting 10 to 15 grams of protein in there to start stable.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
starting with a strong foundation that generalizes to so many things, like starting
Mm-hmm.
from the bottom up, and that relates to our diet and, how we start our day.
Absolutely.
And I think oftentimes when you said before, I think you said emotional regulation and sensory regulation. And in my mind, there's an overlap of those as well for the interoceptive system. If I'm feeling that my blood sugars are dropping and my energy is dropping, that is going to affect my emotions and my sense, like how I'm feeling my body and what kind of energy levels and why was I just so high and excited and now I'm dropping.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times people that are in this community will look at the external world. What dysregulated that individual? What was the trigger? And sometimes we completely disregard what's happening internally. Was it that exactly what you said, I'm feeling fatigued and I want to take a nap and you're asking me to go do, this educational activity? Or is it that, oh, I'm having really intense cramping because of this, whatever's happening in my gut? So I I too, again, because I've learned my own body and how I react to different foods, I then generalize that into my care as well, because how we feel internally is obviously going to show externally. So
Yeah,
yeah, really good
absolutely.
advice. Yeah, and I love how
Mm-hmm.
you kind of connected the dots, almost like a ladder. This is what we need. We need to step back, think about this first, and then work that way. So thank you. Um, Okay, another question about food. I think of this whenever I'm going like to the local farmers market, and I love seeing how the fruits will kind of change to, like, just now peaches and cherries came out, and I was so
Mm-hmm.
excited, like, yes, they're finally here. And I know that eating in season, like feeding your body in alignment with, Mother Nature and what it's providing for us naturally is so important. Do you have any favorite seasonal foods with summer coming up, or anything that you would recommend parents to kind of keep an eye out for in the stores?
Honestly, anything that's fresh. I mean, my favorite seasonal fruit is mango, but
Mm,
truthfully, it's not local, so it doesn't actually count as a seasonal fruit. In India,
mm,
maybe it's a seasonal fruit. So for me, in Portland, the berries are awesome. So I would say berries because they are an easy food to get local, to get fresh, to get. I mean, if that is local to your region, okay. So um, there's, you know, in the healthy food functional medicine community, we're very afraid of fruits. I would say don't be. So, I
mhm,
mean, definitely if a child is struggling with yeast overgrowth or something, there may be one point where you need to
yeah,
watch it, or if they have other sensitivities to certain foods. But as a baseline, I mean, this is the most anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, brain supporting bang for your buck that you can get is berries. So,
mm,
and this is, I'm definitely going to go to the farmer's market to get the first strawberries, then the first blueberries, then the blackberries, and that
mhm,
order
yeah.
um, over here. So yeah, if berries are local to you, otherwise, whatever brightly colored fruit is local to you, go for it.
Mm. Okay, so the
Hmm.
color is part of it too.
Yeah.
Is it the, like, the vitamins and the nutrients associated with color? Because I remember learning
Yeah, it's
about
just
that too.
like an indication of different antioxidants and
Okay.
polyphenols. So it's just a little bit probably a little bit more loaded. A lot of times people I like to do that too, is to alternate the colors
Mm,
when you're planning a meal. It could be within a day, it could be within a week, that you kind of want to see go through the rainbow, because that in a way kind of make sure that you're getting nutrients from different ends of the spectrum.
I love
So
that.
yeah,
I've never heard that.
yeah,
That's such like a nice, easy mental note. Did I get
yeah,
all my
yeah,
colors in this week? I'm
yeah,
gonna try that. That's awesome.
yeah.
Cool. All right. We are going to shift gears. Um, I should have asked this one a little earlier, but that's okay. I'm curious what one of the first things your son Sid spelled for you guys, or your
Honestly,
favorite
I can't.
thing.
He said, yeah, I know in his first RPM session with Soma, he said something about a dog going to a farm. And, no matter what your kids spell for the first time, all the moms and dads are, always immediately in tears. And it's like,
Yeah.
because he was 7 at the time, um, and obviously hadn't spoken a word since birth.
Mm.
But um, I can't remember, but what I do remember being really taken by is him writing a poem because Soma does a lot of creative work in his sessions as well. And he wrote something about like a really rhyming, fun poem called The Greenhouse. Just like this, it was a nice kids' poem where, house rhymes with mouse and cat and hat. And it was just like it was a very funny poem. And
Yeah.
it was, it was really like, cute and funny. And it kind of, when you actually see a poem, that's what ends up blowing your mind is like,
Yeah.
oh, you can do that. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because the
yeah,
multi-layer thinking to get the rhyming and get the cadence of it right. And I remember taking
yes.
a class, I don't know what grade I was in, but about poem writing, and I just couldn't get it. I'm not a writer. I'm creative in other ways, but I remember
Mm-hmm.
being like, this is so tedious. So again, it's more than just the words that are coming out. It's all the processing and thoughts and the emotion behind a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
thoughts that we get with our spellers. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that with us.
yeah.
All right. So I'm actually in a course right now, Communication for Education, where I'm working to instill more of the presuming competence into the
Mm-hmm.
education model and advocating for that. And it's all around just multimodal communication. So
Yeah.
um, I'm wondering if you have any tips on how we can shift and encourage the public school system to move towards that strengths-based approach instead of that deficit-based model. My wing woman, Jess, who you were in touch with to set this up, she works in the schools up in Long Beach, California. And um, as she's learning through a lot of what we do through Sunrise, she's seeing these, it's just bringing more to her attention of this deficit based model. And a big piece of what I care about is getting this into the schools because that's where a lot of our kids spend most of their time. So, if you have any tips on ways that you've advocated in the public school system, that would be great.
This is a really hard one, as you know, because
Yeah.
it's systemic. I always say that you can work on individuals, but
Mm-hmm.
working on systems is a different game for different people. So when parents ask me this question, I always say that do you have the resources to do that? Can you do that? Do you want to do that? Even if you
Mm-hmm.
file a case and you're fighting against it, it's still what comes immediately to a school system is defense, right? So they're putting in their
Yes.
resources to defend themselves. So I haven't often seen that work because the school system is intent on preserving their, we're doing our best, even though they're
Mm-hmm.
not, or they might be, but they might be doing it from a wrong direction. But your question is different because now, if that question is general, and we're not, putting that burden on an individual to challenge that system, and we're thinking as a
Exactly.
society, I think that as clinicians, everybody like I mean I'm also a teacher and I teach math and science to non-speakers, and
Mm-hmm.
you are a clinician. We all have data from hopefully from before and after we have done this, or if we don't have before and after, we at least have what happens when you presume competence that can be
Mm-hmm.
contrasted. I think pitching to schools, maybe getting looking for a grant to do that. I don't know who actually pays for this. Maybe the school itself would pay, but just trying to convince them that their outcomes would be, that's the wrong phrase, not trying to convince them, but selling them the idea that their outcomes are going to be very different because ultimately that's what they care about, right?
Yeah.
They are
Right.
going to get less teacher burnout. They're going to have an easier time in their classroom. So offering them a system that's going to make their life easier, because in truth, that's what they care about is how can you make their life easier. So,
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
that's
That's a
fine.
good point.
That's an
Yeah.
okay
That's
thing to care about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we
So
all, that's why we do all the things to take care of ourselves to move through our day with ease, makes
yeah, and
sense.
I think as a group of parents and professionals, maybe this needs to be a bigger movement that we like we bring this together and collect the evidence and offer a model that that we can train schools on. I think
Yeah.
we just need a group of people to work together to do that. But what we need is examples so that they can see. Otherwise, it's just so far, I think what's happening is individual parents telling schools that my child is smart. And every school I've spoken to just rolls their eyes and thinks it's like, for them, it's the equivalent of a prisoner saying, I'm not, guilty
That's
kind
it.
of thing. They don't take it
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been told that by teacher aides and people. They say, yeah, all the parents come here and say their kids are smart. For them, it's not a reality until this
Yeah.
becomes a bigger push, and where they
Yeah.
can actually see clinical evidence is still evidence. So I think that
Mm.
we don't need to wait for studies. I think we just need to see these
Yeah.
are the kids that we're working with. This is how they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really bringing those moments, those before and after, that moment of shift for them and making sure their minds are in that space to receive that and believe in it and all of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said earlier, I think the more and more voices are heard, non-speaking, minimally speaking, or non-reliable speakers, the more they are advocating out there and
Yeah,
getting their voices heard, the more change we'll see happening. So,
that's
thank
true.
you. Yeah, thank you for your insight on that. Okay, I've got two more questions. I always ask these last two. Our like big thing here is rise and shine as your best self. It's not about changing who you are or you know masking or doing any of that. It's about just finding who you are internally and then rising up and embracing that.
Mm.
So, what is something that allows you to do that? For me, it's being near the ocean, taking care of myself through meditation. It's serving this community. So there's like things that fill my bucket, so then I feel uplifted and able to show up as my best self. So, what are some of yours?
Similar, I think that I get up in the morning, I do my breathing exercises, my pranayama meditation, and
Hmm.
I go for a walk if there is sun, because I live in Portland, so that's not
Yeah.
always the case. But that's it. I just getting up earlier than the rest of the family, which doesn't always happen. It didn't happen today, but and meditating and breathing is kind of my non-negotiable.
Yeah. Yeah. I could relate.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Sometimes I don't realize that I didn't do it until something goes wrong. I'm like, why? Like, why is my day going like this? I'm like, oh, I didn't take that time this morning, and it's because I was so in my head going, going, going,
Yeah.
that I got to that regulation state, dysregulated state, I guess I would say. Awesome. All right. Is there anything else you want to share with us or any tidbits? I definitely want you to share where people can find you. I know this is linked to your Instagram account and you have some great resources on there. But if there's
Yeah.
anything else you wanted to share, feel free.
I think wherever you are, there's a path forward. I know that a lot of sometimes the spelling modalities can feel less accessible to people that are very
Mm-hmm.
that who have children that are very maybe have low muscle tone, have are conventionally caught. Then I'm doing an air quote here. If you're just hearing this, is low functioning, because usually
Mm-hmm.
that means low functioning motor skills. It means low functioning visuals. That's what we really mean. So, but I feel like, if anything, just Sid is an example of everything that can be considered low functioning. So I think it can work. It just takes time, and I I feel that both diet and presuming competence are two two railroads, or whatever you want to call it. What's the right word for it? They're both like two legs of the
Yes.
same goal. So
Mm-hmm.
I have it's very hard for one to succeed without the other. So without an anti-inflammatory diet, we're really not setting the stage for success, because the child or adult continues to be uncomfortable in their body, if they are uncomfortable in their body. And so that's kind of a foundation, but the more important thing is presuming competence, because otherwise, what's the point of nutrition if you're not learning? So, I mean, we
Yeah.
can't. Nutrition is simply the means; it's not the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is our first
Thank you.
ever Mugs and Mornings, so you
Oh,
broke the
thank you for
ice for
inviting
us.
me for your first ever. So cool.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll be in touch on social and in the community.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Have a beautiful day. Bye bye.